Before we go to our next segment, I do want to ask you, do you think this defense is going to be better or worse this year than it was last?
I think it'll be better. It'll be far better. When it comes to scoring, definitely that's what the Eric Carlson aspect is here for. We thought Jeff Petrie was supposed to bring us this mix of offense and also some grittiness. I mean, he brought those things, but it just wasn't at the level we wanted, and it was disappointing considering he was the highest paid defenseman on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Eric Carlson brought in, and we know what he's going to bring. It's offense and not much defense and $10 million. We'll see how it all goes with the $10 million part, but for now, we're expecting elite level scoring. We should get that. Marcus Pettersson's entering another prime year, should be a step up. That battle between P.O. Joseph and Ty Smith that we fought, Ryan Graves should be a step up from Brian Dumoulin. And we'll see who that sixth defenseman is. I think regardless of who that position goes to, this Penguins defense should be far better than it was last season.
Mm-hmm. You say far better. I say miles better. So we're on the same
Yeah.
wavelength here. More offensive production, no matter what. I mean, you bring in a guy like Eric Carlson, you're going to get more offensive production. Not to mention the fact that if you switch out last season, you had Jan Ruda, sometimes Chad Ruhwedel. If Ty Smith wins that battle offensively, you're so far out ahead, the Roadrunner's not going to catch up to you. But people talk about the defensive struggle on the right side, and you mentioned it. Eric Carlson's not going to bring a high level of defensive efficiency. But I do think they're still going to be better defensively for a few reasons. One, they got better / faster in the bottom six in general. And they got better defensively. So I think you're going to get more help for your blue liners. And that's really point number one and the most important point. And two, I think when you look at the talent of the players that they brought in, and Eric Carlson, even a Ryan Graves, if you look at what P.O. Joseph and my expectations and my projections for the jump he's going to take in year number 2 with the full season under his belt now, the transition game is going to be a lot quicker. And that was a big issue for the Pittsburgh Penguins last year. Petrie, Ruda, P.O. Joseph in his first stint there, Brian Dumoulin, sometimes they struggled in the transition game. That put a lot of pressure on their defensive partners, on Marcus Pettersson's, on Chris Letang's, and that forced turnovers that a lot of people held on them. It was partially on their D partners as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the transition game is something that Kyle Dubas really went out and went after. He added Ryan Graves, who's a great stay-at-home defensive defenseman, but also a smart puck mover and really good in the transition game. And then, of course, Eric Carlson needs no, introduction. I think the quicker transition game is also going to aid the Penguins when it comes to their defending their own zone. I think mentioning Graves, that is a massive, I can't understate enough, a massive upgrade over what Brian Dumoulin brought to the Pittsburgh Penguins last season. Again, what was left for Dumoulin was what he showed. Ryan Graves is in the prime of his career, hence the reason that he got the richest contract in free agency for any skater for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I think the third pairing is always going to be the best available. Last year it was, Jan Ruda is making the money, so if Jan Ruda is healthy, he's in there. There were some games where Jan Ruda was not performing better than what you would have gotten from a Chad Ruhwedel, what you would have gotten from a Mark Friedman, what you would have gotten from a Ty Smith, who only had 9 games of NHL experience last year. The third pairing, because of the way Kyle Dubas is always going to be who is performing at their best right now is who's going to be in on that pairing. Not to mention that pairing is not going to get a lot of heavy lifting simply because of how many minutes the top 2 pairings are going to demand. But I do think when they're out there, it's going to be whoever is best prepared to go out there and help the Penguins win the game, which I can't say that was the case all the time last season.
No, it was here are the guys. Here's how much money they make. You're going to feel good about putting that amount of money in the press box? And that's a question that always arises, and it's going to come up again this season when it comes to certain guys, i.e. Jeff Carter.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's always a consistent question, and it's always the one that bugs me in my head when it's situations like this. You're paying them that much, well, then figure something out if you're not going to play them. Or I always go back to we just acquired this person. Why is he not going to make the team now? Yeah. Just because there are so many other people as well. And this, there's different aspects going into this season that changes my line of thinking there. But it's still interesting to think that at least last season, Jan Ruda being a healthy scratch, he's making how much money? He's a new signing. It doesn't make sense for just the price tag, but B, the morale of the player too. I mean, that's part of it. It's hugely important. Plus, just the amount of injuries that defense had last year, and time missed. Jan Ruda at one point was a first line defenseman. It was a struggle for our defense to remain healthy.
Yeah.
And if they could do that this year, they're definitely miles better.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that when people look at this Pittsburgh Penguins team, that's the biggest question mark. People are saying, oh, they're going to have to boat race everybody. It's going to be, 10-9 games or 8-7 games all the way around. I think this team's going to be a little bit better defensively than a lot of people are giving them credit for. And I think that's also going to go to the fact that the goaltending is going to be improved from last year as well.